Welcome back to Bingo Topics, where we're going to look at a myriad of things surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles, from topics to the collapse, a snippet of it, of the Eagles in 2023, to all the job openings, or apparently open around, or connected with, I should say, the Philadelphia Eagles. What's up? It's your boy Cintron coming back at you with another analysis video, and I kid you not, that's my real name. First thing we're going to do today is take a closer look at the 2023 Eagles' historic collapse. So what went wrong and why? Because we're just as confused as this guy here, to some extent. All right, Jeffrey Lurie walked up the tunnel ramp of Lincoln Financial Field fuming. Should be mad at yourself, son. The squinting eyes of the refined Eagles owner spit words. His gnarled, sneering veneer screamed, "I want to punch someone in the face." And you should punch yourself. After the Eagles' 35-31 loss to the 3-win Arizona Cardinals on December 31st. And who allowed those 35 points? Your defense. The offense actually put up points there, so there's something to that. But yeah, you should be hitting yourself, buddy. It marked the fourth time in 5 games Lurie saw his team lose, and he clearly was not pleased. Connected by the ghostly cord of General Manager Howie Roseman and team president Don Smolinski, may have been the angriest anyone may have ever seen Lurie after an Eagles loss. And he has no one to blame but himself and those other 2 yes men. The 2023 Eagles were an epic disappointment, and that's an understatement. Historically epic. Lurie has been deflated. He has been depressed. I don't understand why, man, because you got to look yourself in the mirror and realize that you are the source of your problems. Who made the hirings, or who signed off on them? De facto, leader in the front office, Howie Roseman, but who cuts his checks? You do. So you depressed about something you can change? Like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and expecting a different result. And yet, that's what we keep doing here. He may have been as angry as his face expressed that night. Sure he was. The inescapable fact is Lurie and Roseman failed. Head coach Nick Sirianni failed. The coaching staff failed. The players certainly failed. The media, in a sense, failed to see that the 2023 Eagles, projected to be Super Bowl contenders, will be seriously marred by coordinator and player defections, especially on the defensive side. So, I love that they put it in order. Because at the top of the list, like I just said, Lurie and Roseman have to be held accountable for their own mistakes. The question is, who is there to hold them accountable? When you're the owner of the team, you don't have a board, of directors that, rake you over the coals over your decisions or micromanage you. You are it. You are the stopping gap. So unless you're really honest with yourself and you have time to reflect with the leaders on your team or guys in positions of power that you respect, nothing's going to change. And his son being the head of analytics for us does not go unmentioned, because it plays a factor in why we make the decisions we do on the field with something that has nothing to do with football intellect or, strategy per se, but it shouldn't be the factor that we're beholden to. And the irrefutable fact that it's affecting us in our decision making in game is something that's it's very deeply troubling. Roseman, personnel decisions. When he wrested power back from Chip Kelly, and he won because he was fired, I know he vowed to himself to never let that happen again. Not the situation, but the loss of power, and making him feel inept, neutered in a sense, as he was relegated to, the East Tower of the building or wherever it was he was locked away for. But that trauma, which also, the owner suffered because he's the guy that gave the power to him, Chip Kelly. They've been traumatized from that, and it's become a detriment to this team ever since. And Sirianni, he's not the end all be all as far as where the problems start and stop. He's just the latest puppet that we have to deal with. and that's not fighting his strings being pulled. That's the problem with Nick Sirianni. And they don't need a yes man. They need someone that's going to tell them, sit down, shut the fuck up, and let me do my fucking job. And the players, you fault them to some degree, but they're being blown in whichever direction. They need a sense of direction, and that's not coming from the top, not coming from the coaches. And that's a big problem, because if they could do it out of themselves, they damn sure would. Hell, Devonta tried to will his way, or will us to a playoff win with his numbers. Couldn't do it, because football is the ultimate team sport. The media, they're just as bad. We'll get to that in another date, but their portrayal of certain people, and they're gonna do what they do. You gotta hold them accountable to some degree, like Fletcher Cox did this week. Yeah. But they're ravenous wolves. They'll eat whatever morsels you put in front of them. The thing is, you can control that. It's called a feeding schedule, and what chunks, sizes, quality of meat you give to them. But yeah, they had that because we went last year, and not enough things changed from last year to this year to make us play this bad. But not taking the coordinator jobs seriously, and player defections. We could have kept some of these players from defecting. So a lot of the guys would have been amenable to coming back, and the contracts weren't out of hand, like TJ Edwards. We don't value the position, and look what happened. He had a pretty damn decent year. I don't know where he grades, but I probably would say he was like probably the worst top 15 linebackers graded out in the league. So prior to who to keep and who not, we can see that not keeping CJ Gardner-Johnson was a mistake. And it was underestimated his role last year. I did, at least. Some fans who brought in early and suffered late failed to see it as it gradually unfolded before their eyes with a continuous collective refrain, but we still won, despite portents of trouble. And, I'm guilty of that. But how could I have known? I was not in the building to see for myself that we were going to ignore the small things and focus on moving on and not really paying attention to the mistakes that we were letting pass as long as we won, or the attitudes of guys that, okay, we'll get to it later, or, it's fine. I hate to come back to this, but Shannon Sharp, the statement, he was right. Never accept things in a win that you wouldn't accept in a loss. And we can see that we neglected that thing like it was a malnutrition baby, and then wonder why it's emaciated. But we're going to continue this over the course of 4 days. This is just a preview snippet just to get into it, but it'll have 4 sections of this article, and I believe they deserve some due diligence just to pour over them and to cover the how, the why, the when, the who, the all right. Anyways, let's move on. Reports say that Brian Johnson not returning as Eagles offensive coordinator. So this is coming from Derek Gunn. He's a reporter there in Philly, and he has some sources inside the building. He's not going to burn the sources, but it allows him to get some juicy morsels of information and tell him that he's going to land elsewhere. So the thought process is, I guess they met with, when Nick met with Lurie, he probably told him that, yeah, you're on, but hey, you got to amend to 2 things or 3 things. There's going to be big changes on the staff. Offensive guy, I like Brian Johnson, but he can't stay on as offensive coordinator. Who's to say he can't be here as, stay here as a QB coach, but he's going to be done as offensive coordinator. And 3, defensive side, we're probably going to just, Nick, we're just going to strong arm you. We're going to pick who we want to pick. I might let you pick on the offensive side, but defensive side, we're going to just do this. That's not surprising, but the thing is they're not going to let him go because they could potentially get 2 third-round picks next year if he is picked as a head coach. So until that plays out, and he's not going to get the Carolina Panthers job. Didn't go to the second round of interviews. Atlanta, they're leaning towards Belichick, but the power concern is there for him. So his most realistic shot is Tennessee, and I think they're looking at Willis Money as the lead candidate. So who knows how it falls out. But I don't think he gets a head coaching job. I think he gets ends up getting fired. But yeah, he took a lot of the blame. But I really think it was Sirianni. Play calling, okay, sure. But you're not letting him have access to his plays. So they're not installed in the first place. And then you want him to run a scheme. How am I going to run your scheme better than you? So it's just confusing. Not a lot of clarity there. And I heard there was a lot of butting of heads of, him and Nick and Hurts, Johnson and Hurts. So, I mean, this is a whole mess. And this whole thing here, I'm going to get to this in a short. The head coach himself said he wasn't prioritizing offensive innovation. Huh? All right. Next thing on the agenda. Another sign that Nick Sirianni will be back as head coach. He's having a presser on Wednesday with Howie Roseman. And you don't do this if you're going to turn around and just fire the guy. So this pretty much means that Nick's going to stay on. So I believe, like I said, covering the last article, he was amenable to the changes that Lurie wanted to make / Howie said that you have to do to stay on here. And Nick wanted to keep his job. I think he bent over backwards for those. The puppet, I said, he would be, and he is the yes man. That being said, I do think 2024 is his last chance. They're not going to ride it out if he has another unacceptable loss. If he gets out of the wild card, I believe, okay. But a collapse like anything close to this, he might be mid-season, or he won't even be able to close out the season. Next up, report, Eagles will interview Mike Caldwell. So he was previously the defensive coordinator there with Doug Peterson in Jacksonville. And in defense, I think they finished with a DVOA of 10th overall, but he was fired. And he doesn't run like a solid scheme. I'd love to have him as a linebacker. I think he was a former linebacker himself on the staff because, he could teach. But this is not an arrow pointing in the right direction. This is more of a retread, and I don't think it's going to be as aggressive. I think he could maybe be okay, but you don't want to go with okay. There's so many candidates out there. I'm in favor of Wink Martindale because what he brings, the aggressiveness there, and the tools he would ask us to bring in. At least one playmaking linebacker at the second level. So. But that's why I don't think they would bring him in because, one, he's not a puppet. Two, he does things his way. And three, he's aggressive and wants to actually put resources into the linebackers, which we don't do. All right, the last thing I'm going to close out with today is the report that Eagles want to interview Ron Rivera for a defensive coordinator position. And I'm glad, shot at the top billing. When I watch a video of him, I'm like, I want to see what he's got to say on this. And I was like, no, because it's the image you have in your head, defensive coordinator Ron Rivera going back, Riverboat Ron, when he was that in those days. He coached up some pretty good damn defenses. Last being, 2010 with the Chargers. They led the league in total defense. That being said, that was a while ago. Offenses have changed and adapted since then. They had a solid one during a lot of his years there in Carolina, but here during his tenure with Washington, him being a defensive guy, they haven't been able to field a good unit. He took over for the last handful of games, and they actually got worse. So he's been on a downwards trend. Don't like it. He used to be a linebacker, so I damn sure would be open to him doing the linebackers coach, but he's also trending in the wrong direction, even worse than the last guy we just mentioned in regards to his defensive coaching capabilities. So I wouldn't want him here either, but he would be another puppet. Has a history as well. You can see he was a linebackers coach here from 99 to 03 with Andy Reid. But we got to stop with, if we want to have sustained success, we got to stop with these retreads, guys that we can control, and passive defenses. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents. But you're not even watching though, but it's all good because as always, I love talking about the Eagles. I love talking about the Eagles and I love making these videos. So we're going to chunk the deuces. But as always, it's fly, Eagles, fly. And let's motherfucking go.
Like, comment, share, and subscribe if you like.
Thanks for watching. Check me out at Cintron, Cintron Anime, Cintron Life, or Cintron Laughs, or other social media.